Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is part 2 of my build guide. This is going to be the healing section, and I'm really tired. I've been procrastinating. I'm making this on Thursday the night before I'm going to release it, so I'm going to be kind of going through this pretty quick, okay? This is the healing portion of my build. I have 3 sections to build: the oh crap, the healer DC'd in the quest section, the normal R10 way I run this with the enhancement splits, and then I'll show you my raid push setup, which is all pretty similar. So this is just my oh crap, the healer DC'd. I basically just switch straight to my gear. I don't have any of the healing stuff, so my heals are a little weak, but I can usually get us through a quest. So I start with a 5-piece green steel set, goggles, helm, my belt. This is all opposition, by the way, except for the belt and gloves have my crit stuff on, so my heals are nice and strong. And my boots. I use the legendary 5 ring for a little bit of intimidation, the con stuff, and a little bit of resistance. Flame cleansed fury set. Just for the basic crit. And yeah, I know Feywild probably is going to be a little bit more up to date, but I usually set up all my gear around this for self-healing in R10s and raid pushes. I really like this minor artifact neck here. Gives you a lot of extra heal amp. There's your wisdom, all that kind of stuff. Clouded gem or clouded dreams ring for spell lore and a few other things there. It's a nice touch. I use the wild fort set augment and the touch of power augment. My scepter is the devotion scepter from the first Lord's March quest, and then I'll either use the legendary green steel scepter or I use the Dethic runestone, which is sweet for druid. Don't knock this shield. I love this shield here. That gives me my touch of power 3 set. Even with just my setup, no enhancements or anything, my positive spell power is about 600. It's not horrible. You know, I can get us through a quest if I need to. So, usually if I am given time to prepare, I untrain out of Nature's Warrior, all 41 points, and then I put it into Season's Herald. And I do this rather quick. I just get all the crit stuff, anything that can give me spell power, wisdom, all that kind of stuff. Defenses, of course, Crowd of Summer, a little bit of efficiency. And I do this a lot, so once you get used to this, I could change this build over to this R10 setting in just a few minutes if I don't screw up. And this build handles R10s really well. Very rarely die on this. It's very hardy in the game. Basically, I try to train as many points into this side as possible because you get one universal spell power per action point spent in this tree, and that adds up over time. So every little bit counts. I use this. It's not the most helpful thing in the world, but what else are you going to train at this point? Winter's Heart, very important. It's like a budget affirmation proc. You could use every, it says cooldown 1 minute. I thought it was 30 seconds. Oh yeah, every 1 minute. Nice little thing. That and affirmation stack, so you can end up having like an extra 1,500 hit points in quests, which is a nice cushion if you get hit by any reaps. So I switched over here. I come down here. This Crown of Summer stacks with the Crown of Summer gear. So if you see a melee that also has a helmet on, don't be afraid to give that to the melee. It will actually help them out really well. And as you see, the Winter Heart here, extra about 500 spell points, or hit points, temporary hit points. It's really nice to have. And then for my Twist of Fate, I use a very basic split, meld, and then I use Tsunami. Once this loads, any day now, not getting any other. There we go. I use Tsunami. I head over to Fate Singer. I grab the Arcane Hymn. Gives you a little bit more spell power. I like the defenses of it. I used to use the Primal Hymn for more heal lamp and stuff. It's okay, it gives you a little bit more hit points, but I'm actually liking the defenses of this because usually if I get hit by something that hurts, it's the spells that really mess me up in game. And I just grab a few more spell points, and I'll tell you why. Like I said in my last video, this build is very suited to me. I carry pots on me left and right. I would not, if you're one of those people that doesn't spend money on the DDO store or have a abundance of pots, the healing section of this build is not for you because druid spells have a ton of spell point cost. Then I go unyielding already. I go unyielding, then I have my stance, turn against the tide. I usually stay in vigor of battle. And difference now, I'll show you this with pots too. Now, I'm about 700 positive spell power already. Actually seems a little off to me. I thought it was a little higher than that. I forget something. Nope, that's about normal then. I stopped using the Empyrean magic because it's going bye-bye, so if you're wondering why I'm not using Empyrean magic, I'm getting used to not having the higher spell crit chance. And that's that. Now, I usually run Fire Elemental when I play this, not Water Elemental, because Water Elemental, if you get Horrid Wilted in it, it's going to do extra damage. Fire Elemental, it doesn't have that. Make sure you grab the buff Elemental Toughness. It adds PRR and Arcane Hymn, and that is pretty much what I do for most R10 stuff. Builds at around 4k hit points in dungeon. And usually I buff up to 800-ish positive spell power, right under 800, so not bad at this point. And then the raid push section of this build, and the nice thing about this part is you don't need to have completionist. I'm sorry, all your racial completionists done. It's not going to make a huge difference. So if, like I said in the last video, to do the melee section, you should really have everything. But if you didn't need to have DPS at full power, you could actually do the healing side of this build pretty darn well, you know. And at this section, I just grab the basics here. That gives me a few extra points to spend over here, and then I just put standard 15 over here. And this is generally what I will run for raid pushes. That gives us some extra action points to put into this tree, and it doesn't really matter where you spend them. I just kind of put them all over. Most of the stuff I'm not going to use. And one other thing I do is I grab Feydark, get the little kitty cat. It's going to give you some more spell power. And there, I put as many points in the Season Herald as possible, and I switch out my feat on my raid push from Arborea to Scion of Celestia. And that's basically my raid push section of this build. Oh, I gotta reset this stuff up to show you guys. So you had Tsunami there. And the nice thing about this raid push section of the build is it's extremely effective. You want to have as much power as possible behind your spells and stuff. You have 85 spell crit multiplier, which is it's getting up there, you know. You want to have as much as possible for your regeneration. You can't have too much positive spell power on a druid and crit power. So get as much as possible. Now, I do realize that this build is not easy to gear out. 5-piece green steel, there's going to be a lot of you out there that do not have it. So what I suggest is running a 4-piece winner, making one green steel piece, you could run goggles, belt, gloves, and boots. I'm sorry, I messed up here. You could run, as for the wisdom, you can run belt. I'm sorry, boots. Winter boots, belt. I believe there's one of the winter gloves out there. I believe there's a winter ring, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think here. And then I would have the green steel helmet as the crit for this thing. If you were running a 4-piece winner for the hit points, you would still want to craft green steel. I'd work on the helmet first, get the green steel done, just so you have the full crit on this thing. And depending on the raids that we do, like if we start pushing something heavy where I need more hit points and such, then I will start dipping into my melee feats, getting rid of them, switching them out for more of the healing spec type feats. And that's pretty much all there is to this build. The feats I'll show you my scepter here. I'm not going to be very organized this time around, because I don't have much time to make this. I use the Nistals for hit points, and then a lot of just heal lamp stuff. And that's pretty much it on those feats there. The nice thing about being Druid and being in an elemental form is you don't have to worry about fortification. Just being in an elemental form gives you a pretty decent amount of fortification as is. So I don't get crit by anything, even after the stat squish. I don't know what your acceptable fortification numbers are supposed to be at, but after the stat squish I still don't get crit by anything. And I'll toss this build into a quick Reaper 10. Gotta turn in real quick here.
All well and good, but my hunger is not yet sated.
It's extremely self-sufficient in here, and this is without being fully. I would trade other feats here for a little bit more heal lamp and stuff, the level 29 feat. If I was really having to push like a tough raid or something, but as you see, 4,200 hit points, Winter's Heart, it's extra 500. The scepter here will give me 1,000 once I tsunami. It's very hardy, and most of you all are just going to run R10s. Yeah, this build handles R10s real well. There's 1,500 hit points. And heals itself really well. I could heal myself to full really freaking quickly in R10s. So even if you don't have another healer in R10s, it's extremely self-sufficient with this setup. That's why I use this over the Feydark. I'm sorry, the other setup with the Fey equipment, because this one has so much more heal amp. I don't know how to get as much heal amp as this on the other setups. Alrighty. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment below. If I have to raid push, oftentimes a lot of the feats that I change out, and this might sound kind of simple, I'll usually change out the melee feats for just simple toughnesses. You can get an extra couple hundred hit points on this build with that. And I'll show you some other cool thing. This build I do not consider a tank by all means. Definitely not a tank. But if you had to tank like a regular pug raid or something, legendary hearts and even R1s in most cases are very doable. I don't have a heart setup on this build anymore, so I tend to shy away from R1 VOD, but pretty much all other quests in the game, or all of the raids in the game, I have no problem tanking. Usually I will just switch to epic defensive fighting, and there you are. You have as much hit points or more than most tanks, or most pug tanks you'll see out there. And that's what I'll do. I can tank R1 killing time without much issue. Even at 20 stacks, I was tanking it no problem the other day. Eventually it got me because the group was really slow. But yeah, I don't have much problem in tanking raids at all. I haven't tried tanking a R1 VOD yet. I have a feeling I would get beat up real bad doing the during the curses, you know. So I'm kind of hesitant to actually try that. So I get up to a little over 800. I don't have my cat summoned or anything like that. There's my stats. It's not bad. Not bad. It definitely gets the job done. And about the healing, the heals are some of the most powerful in the game. And I know I'm going to have a lot of people argue with me over this. Druid has a ton of caster levels. The only heals that are as strong as Druid heals are Cleric heals. And they're about even right now since the new update to Cleric. The heals are about the same power. And I'm going to hear I'm going to hear a lot of arguing with me over that. Well, my Bard, I bet you my Bard out heals you. No, it doesn't. I promise you it doesn't. I'm a very experienced healer. I've played Favorite Soul, Bard, Cleric, and Druid a lot. And let me tell you something, the only thing out there right now that's healing as strong as Druid is Cleric. You know. The one downside to raid pushing with this build, something that Cleric and Favorite Soul do not have, is the Death Pact feat. So if you wanted to be a serious raid pusher, like if I was asked to, oh, we're doing R10 Lord of Blades, I would probably TR into my 17-3 Cleric split over this one. But for most other raids, I am very comfortable into taking this thing into a raid push. You know, I'm not going to get one shot too easily with this build. And it has a lot of regeneration and renew stack, so it has a lot of raid utility. And if I was raid pushing, a lot of times I wouldn't even take Tsunami. You probably wouldn't need it if you were raid pushing. You can take renew instead. And between your spell crit and power on this thing, renew and regen will do the Lord's work in raid pushes. Very, very effective. I don't usually run both when I'm doing R10s, but yeah, between regen and renew, you'll keep a tank alive pretty well. The renew, give you an idea of what the cape was. It's a 3k renew. So if you have a decent tank, I only have, let's see, I'm only at about 280 heal amp right now. If you have a decent tank, most tanks should be at about that or higher. So if you have a decent tank, you should be hitting it with 3k regens pretty easy. So that and the renews, and it doesn't take much to get somebody back to full power. And then, of course, the spells. The actual spells on them are pretty well. The trick to this too is the regeneration mass. I know you're not given mass spells, and people tend to shy away from healing druids because of that. The cooldown on regeneration mass is so low, though. I mean, you can just spam it nonstop on groups. So yeah, this takes the place of a healing AoE pretty well. A little bit underpowered compared to a Favorite Soul or Cleric when it comes to AoE healing, but the you can just keep spamming it. and that's usually what I do. So, trying to think of anything else I could tell you guys on this thing. I can't think of anything yet, so that's all there is to it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me below. I'm not going to put the feats and stuff in this one because it's basically the same as my other build. And that's it. Later all.